Thank you for joining today's Fail Thee Well podcast. My name is Jim Collins, and I'm the head of business development here at Kestra Financial. The name Fail Thee Well comes from a song that I love called Fare Thee Well. And what we do is we take a spin on that title to be able to spend time with advisors to learn about the failures, the missteps, the human connections, and the evolution of their practices as they've grown to be successful financial advisors and teams in the space. Today, I'm fortunate to be greeted by our inaugural co-host, Carrie Coghill.
Hi, Jim.
Yes, Carrie is the president and CEO of Coghill Investment Strategies out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and we're excited to learn a little bit more of her story. One spot I will start is I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek, the author, and he talks about the idea of starting with why. So the way I'd love to start today's conversation is tell us why you got in the business of financial services, financial advising. I'd love to hear your perspective.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think a lot of people get into this business because they love people, they love interacting with people. And believe it or not, I'm actually an introvert. So I like the numbers, and my whole path to becoming a financial advisor was really that I wanted to be a CPA. So in working my way through college, I ended up getting a job at a brokerage firm and just loved the numbers. And my passion for working with clients actually came out of wanting to communicate the reality of the numbers, whether it was the reality behind an investment or whether it was the reality behind a financial plan that had been created for them. So, I'm an analytical person, and that's really where my passion began, was in wanting to help people from that perspective.
I love that. And I'll tell you a funny story. I'm probably the exact opposite of that, if you can believe that. So my path, and I've made a lot of mistakes along the way and stumbles to get to where I am now, certainly. But the reason I got in the business, I actually started as a financial advisor, and I was terrible. And I didn't love it. And I was put on a team of senior advisors, and all I did was cold call, and I didn't have a lot of human interaction. So what you do really well and what attracted you to the business was something that I just wasn't great at. I love the human interactions, but I'll be really honest, it's painful to admit this. I didn't love even the financial services side of it, but I did love the people. So I went down that path thinking that, this seems like a job where I can make a decent amount of money. And I realized I wasn't following my passion. And I figured that out pretty quickly within a couple of years. And I was blessed that a good friend of mine reached out and said, hey, Jim, if you like the business, if you like the people, but you didn't like what you were doing, maybe you should look at a different side of the business, which was actually the recruiting or the business development side of things. So I can tell you it took me a while to have that realization. And by the time I did, I was fortunate in that I was able to start going down that path and that's part of honestly what led me to this idea of the podcast and the webinar is being able to hear the human stories, because if not for that interaction with a good buddy of mine in the past and him pointing me in this direction, I'm not sure exactly what I would have done if I'm being really honest.
It's so interesting because when I was working as an administrative assistant at Butcher & Singer, which is a long time ago, I never wanted to be an advisor. In fact, I'm like, I don't ever want to be responsible for, managing someone's money. And it really, I think one of the lessons in this industry is that you have to give yourself a chance and you have to give yourself time to go into it with a preconceived notion of, I want to be a financial advisor or I want to be an analyst. That's great, and it sets you on a course, but there's so many opportunities in this industry that you have to keep an open mind, because as you learn and as you grow, you just don't know what's going to happen inside. Like you say, you use the word passion, and we talk about that a lot, right? When we're mentoring people.
Right.
it takes time to find that. And as I'm mentoring others in this industry, I always tell them, like, to ask the question, what's your passion? It's a process to getting there. So for young advisors, I tell them, when you're in meetings, just think about what feels good. Like, when you walk out, what made you feel good about that meeting? Was it the investment side? Was it the retirement planning side? And let yourself kind of feel where your passion really lies.
I love that. I love that. So let me ask you this as a follow-up to that, because I want to come back to the mentoring piece. That's really interesting. When you think about your favorite, you're the president and CEO of this amazing shop, growing like crazy. When you think of your day-to-day, what's your favorite part of the day? Or the favorite thing you do, or the favorite moment? Like, what does that look like to you?
Well, I have two favorite things that I do now.
Yeah.
And neither one of them, don't tell anyone, is meeting with clients. Okay. My team meets with clients, and, you know, to your point, like, when I was evolving, I had to ask myself the question, what do I really enjoy doing? Well, as an introvert, it's very exhausting time after time to have to turn it on, which I can do.
Right.
But then at the end of the day, it's like, did I really enjoy that? I love managing money, in the analytical seat behind the computer, and really serving that function for our clients is my happy place. Mm-hmm. I also really enjoy mentoring my team and working to develop them. I think it's a skill set that really evolved over time and is the result of probably my biggest mistakes early on in my career.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I can relate to that, as I've shifted my role from being a business development person who covers a territory and has great interactions with advisors and teams like yours, to now overseeing and growing and building a team. I can relate to that, how energizing it is to work with my team, help them have success, remove obstacles, grow the business. Obviously, that's something that's really been more exciting to me than I ever thought it would be. Now, tell me a little bit about that. So when you think of, like, if you think back over all the years you've built the practice, is there a certain mistake or one or two or something that you're like, hey, this was a turning point in my career? Tell me a little bit about that, and then I have a follow-up question or two on that.
So many mistakes, but one theme, which was people, right? It was team. Because as a financial advisor, it is our job to do whatever for the client. And sometimes we don't realize, I know I didn't realize what I was doing to my team, the expectation of my team. They're, people that are on teams and serving different roles, they're different than us. Mm-hmm. We're, at the end of the day, serving the client in and out, and our team is too, but we have a higher kind of, we're really seeking to go that extra mile. And we might do that by promising them something, but yet you have, it's the end of the day and you have a team member that's trying to get out to go watch their son play baseball. I mean, right. So I wasn't aware of those things early in my career. It was like all or nothing. So I don't know if you remember the show Murphy Brown.
Absolutely.
Like every time she came in, there was a new assistant. That was kind of me early in my career. It was hard to keep.
Were you difficult to work with? I mean, if you're being honest about the dynamic
I
there?
guess I must have been. I don't know.
Right?
I wouldn't have said that. But the reality is that, we hold ourselves to a certain standard. And, it's about communication. And what you come to learn is that your team will hold themselves accountable to that standard if you work with them and if you communicate and explain why it's important rather than just, hey, I need you to do this.
Yeah.
So getting that buy-in from the team. But to be honest with you, there was a turning point. It almost gives me chills to talk about because it was bad. But I have a team member who actually is now a partner in the firm. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember how long she was with us, but she came in one day fairly early in our journey and resigned. And it was a real wake-up call for me because I never expected that. And to be honest with you, I think that the challenge that we had was really in my delivery. It was how I taught. I'm like going 100 miles an hour, and then I approach a team member going 100 miles an hour, and it can be really off-putting to not pay attention to, like, how am I disrupting this person's day? And, the tone, I have been known that my tone can be kind of aggressive or cutting. And when she was resigning, it was just a real wake-up call, and that was the moment that I knew I needed to do something.
Yeah.
That, for her to leave, like, things were great, she was on a great track, and it just goes to show you the importance of that relationship.
That's amazing. So how did you, that must have been challenging, is maybe not the right word, to hear that, her coming in to resign to you. Has that shaped the way that you handle those interactions with your team members going forward? Like,
from that moment forward? And I'll tell you, it's not a switch. Like, I had a lot of learning to do about interaction. And, I have a degree in organizational leadership. So it was kind of embarrassing, actually, to have that happen. Yeah. But it really made me pay a lot more attention to how I was communicating. Like, there's so many aspects of being a good leader, and you can be good at them, but if you're not a good communicator with your team, and one of the key points in leadership is that your team has to feel as though you care. And we throw around that term a lot, whether it's caring for our clients or caring for our team, but we don't really step back and say, well, what does that mean? How do we demonstrate it? Like, for our clients, it's easy. We respond. They send us an email, we respond. They call, we call them back. There's action. With your team, it's a little bit different because you're the one that's mostly giving the directive. So learning how to communicate from the framework of, we're team members. You don't work for me. I mean, technically at that point maybe, but really learning how to communicate. And that was when I started to step back and take a look at being more mindful of how I was communicating. Yes, I need this done and it needs to be done yesterday, but I can't walk in there and say that. Or I think probably the biggest issue is that, hey, mistakes happen. Obviously, that's why we're here.
That's right.
So what I needed to learn is that when my team made a mistake, how do I handle it? And I think back then, I don't think I handled it well.
That was going to be my question. So the old Carrie, pre that incident, to the new Carrie that we have post that incident.
Yeah, I mean,
obviously,
I'm not perfect.
Sounds like you communicate better. You're more empathetic. You hear what people are sharing with you. Has it changed because it takes a certain amount of drive to build what you've built, right? So has it changed your focus and your energy to continue to grow the practice?
Yes.
Like, how is it, talk about like how that moment changed how you approach the business from even a bigger, obviously you're doing a much better job, it sounds like, of communicating and hearing and sharing thoughts and feedback, but has it impacted other aspects of the practice?
I mean, it was a game changer. Because what you realize when you bring your people along is that you grow and you develop. And we wouldn't be here. I mean, it wouldn't have, the firm wouldn't have grown. And so being able to really earn trust back. I mean, at the end of the day, that's kind of what it came down to, is that, can my team trust me so that I'm not going to react in a certain way that's going to be off-putting to them. If they make a mistake, I'm not saying, how did this happen?
Right.
I'm saying, like, okay, let's go into resolution mode, and then we'll figure out how going forward we don't see these things again. So, you can't succeed. You can succeed to a point in this industry as an advisor on your own with an assistant or two. But if you want to build a firm, you have to know how to lead people, how to motivate people, and that all comes through communication.
Yes.
We know that the number one thing employees want is appreciation. It's not money, it's not more time off.
Yes.
They want to be appreciated.
Well said. And so you have an amazing team. I've been blessed to be able to spend time with them over the last several months at the very least. How do you find those people? Like, is it do you attract them? Do you go out and seek them? Because obviously the people you have on your team are critical to the success you're going to have as a practice. So like, how do you find people that are going to be the puzzle pieces that you need to get where you're trying to go as the leader of the organization?
Yeah. There's one quality. Are they trainable? Mm-hmm. If they're trainable, then I can develop them. And so as a leader, I have to know what that path looks like in terms of if I, have a person come on, I know the steps that I need to take in order to help them reach their fullest potential, whatever that may be. And sometimes that's not what they came in for. I have someone on the team now that we hired right out of college to be a paraplanner. He is now in an investment management role. He's our trader. And it was only through having conversations with him about what's his passion?
Right.
Why are you in this industry? So when I'm interviewing, some of the questions are, tell me what's driving you to wealth management. And then I'm looking for opportunities to see how they've been trained, what their motivation is to learn. One of our core values at the firm is intellectual curiosity. How curious are they? I like to ask people what they read.
Yes, I love that.
Because it really kind of sheds some light on who they are as people. Mm-hmm. But, this industry, you can teach it as long as someone's kind of driven to learn and succeed.
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Now, so you have this unbelievable team, but our business can sometimes be a little bit of a lonely business where you can have a successful practice, you've grown it, that's great. Like, that is no small feat, what you've done. How do you stay, like, going forward, how do you stay connected, or do you? Do you seek connection with other advisors? How do you do that? Sub question to that as you think about it is, like, if you could, what's the one thing that if advisors could admit, like, hey, we should really be talking about this, or I wish more advisors talked about fill in the blank. Maybe share some thoughts on that.
Yeah, there's so many.
Yeah.
So staying connected is really important in this industry. And at the moment I realized how important it was in actually January of 2009. We had just come off of the worst of the worst.
Yeah, that was rough.
And it did seem like we were living in a vacuum because every day you would wake up, go to the office, be on the phone, come home, repeat day after day. Well, we attended a industry conference in January. Mm-hmm. And at that moment, I realized the importance of connections and the importance of being able to really recognize that I'm not in a vacuum. All of these other people are experiencing the same level of anxiety that I'm experiencing. And being able to, that was a very pivotal moment because, especially in the independent channel, people love sharing.
Yes.
Coming together.
Surprisingly so.
Yeah. And so what came out of that was that a group of advisors and I started a study group that, we meet quarterly. And believe it or not, I think when you think about study groups in our industry, it's like, oh, what's the market doing?
Right.
We never talk about the market. It's about the company. It's about growing the business. It's about what challenges we have in our own firms. One thing I think that sometimes we take for granted is that we think that because we're successful advisors, that then we're successful business people. And I can tell you that's not the case. And in some cases it works against you because we're all about the client.
Yes.
Right? So now you've got to be all about your team too. So how do you marry that? How do you create that equilibrium? Because they're both as equally as important.
Yeah, you beat me to my next question, which is, what's the hardest part about being a business owner?
Yeah.
Because you're right, they're two, in many ways, two different things. There's like art and a science to all of it. So hardest thing for you about being a business owner is what?
Yeah, it's the prioritizing. There's always something to do, whether it's, our processes. At this point, my role really isn't the investment management side, the people and developing the people, but also processes. We are a big believer in traction, in EOS.
Yes.
And so we have processes for everything. And those aren't stagnant, they change as the environment changes. So they're also, I'm now just crazy about business books. I always have been. My mentor from decades ago, he always read, business books all the time.
Yep.
So I was so happy that your name was Jim Collins because I'm a big fan.
I was going to ask you, Jim Collins, good, great, right? I wish I had written it. I didn't. But favorite or one of or current book you're reading now, favorite business book? Like, what are some of the things that were really impactful for you as you kind of shaped your existence here as a great advisor?
I'm a super self-help person. So the E-Myth, obviously, Good to Great. I still love the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Blue Ocean Strategy, I love. Right now, it's just we're all in on EOS, so that's really what's the framework of what we're working from.
I love that. Yeah, that's unbelievable. So when you think back, or when you think to yourself, okay, if I could give young Carrie guidance at any point along the way, and I think this will be particularly impactful for advisors who are growing practices, maybe advisors who maybe hit a roadblock the way that you talked about with your staff that you work through, certainly. So a great piece of advice or two when you think, okay, if I could tell young Carrie, if she knew back then what I know now, in some of these themes you've shared, of course, but what would be a piece of advice or two that you would say, you know what, this is really important?
Yeah, knowledge is power. I think that's really important. And for me as a female in this industry, it was critically important. When people ask me, how did you kind of overcome the fact that this is a male-dominated industry? I had to be smarter, right? I had to learn more. I had to make sure that when I delivered something, that it was something that people would pay attention to. So knowledge is power. But I think that as an advisor, I would take a step back every year and really encourage people to kind of take an assessment of their career. Where do they want to be? I don't think I would be in this place now if I hadn't started doing that 2 decades ago. Right. Just in terms of, okay, where do I see this business going? In really looking at it, we really have to get to the point where we're looking at it as a business and not just, a practice that is growing. These are real businesses.
Right.
And so, I'm very grateful for the success that I've achieved. I think had I done this earlier, had I really started earlier, we started the business on our own in 2011. I was with another firm up until that point, and probably didn't really start looking at this as a business until maybe 2015. And we broke off because we were passionate about how we wanted to deliver to our clients. And my previous firm, it's a great firm. We actually continued to work with them for a number of years, and the CEO was my biggest mentor. I would never have gotten to where I am without him. So it's really looking, you're running a business.
Yes.
And getting that infrastructure, you have to think about your client. I always say, what happens when you're no longer doing this business? And you've talked to enough advisors to know we're never going to retire, right? How many advisors never going to retire?
Yeah.
Well, if our clients said that to us, we'd be like, that's not how we're going to do your planning.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you touched on maybe 2 quick questions before we wrap up. Number one, you talked about, it's always interesting to me when I hear a successful female advisor talk about the challenges of standing out. Maybe that's not exactly the right way to put it, because I think of you as an amazing advisor. right? How much of that do you embrace as being an amazing female advisor versus just being an amazing advisor? And what is that community, because you've done a wonderful job of, you've talked to me about starting study groups here at Kestra, and I'm just so impressed with how you've been able to bring a lot of different people together. How much of it is the female aspect of really being celebrating that, if you will, or some female advisors say to me, Jim, I'm a great advisor. Who happens to be female, and they don't like that differentiation. Is that? Do you think about it that way, or?
I'm a little bit middle of the road on it.
Okay.
I think that being a woman has really enabled me to have a competitive advantage, because I do think that people are more comfortable sharing with women. I have some male clients, executives. I work with some professional athletes in the past that, you get a man in the room and all of a sudden, sorry, but the egos kind of clash.
It's a competition sometimes.
So,
absolutely.
I also, one of the ways that I really built my networks was asking people for advice, which I think for some reason is more natural with a woman, like a man going up to another man over lunch and saying, hey, I really need your advice. Like, I don't know, it was easy for me.
Yes.
And that was really helpful in being able to build my networks and tell our story. I think that women are such a great asset in this industry, and I really embrace everything that's being done, because we do have other challenges. Like there's a whole host of differences that I've overcome because I'm a woman. You sit down at a table and it's all male advisors, and they ask you, so what advisor do you work for?
Right.
My response to that is, I'm my own. What about you?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So you kind of have to give it back a little.
Yeah, push back a little bit.
But I really enjoy mentoring other women and helping them, because I've lived that experience.
Yes, that's amazing. And thank you. Certainly thank you for sharing that. That's something that, honestly, that hits at the core of what we're doing here in Fail Thee Well, is that concept. I really strongly believe that vulnerability is the true source of strength. It's when you're vulnerable, when you admit failures or mistakes, it brings people in. It allows you to connect with them on a very human level in a way that very few things can. So I appreciate you sharing all that.
Of course.
So final question, when you think about your practice, Coghill Investment Strategies, and you think to yourself, the legacy that I want my practice to leave is, or this is how I want to be thought of, like, how do you think about that?
Yeah. I think it's the service model. If there's one thing aside from the people, walking away, and I always talk to my advisors about, like, what's your brand? When you leave the room, what are people saying about you?
Right.
And for me personally, I think it's in the development of my team. How many people have I helped along the way to reach their fullest potential? But as it relates to clients, it's the service model. It's the responsiveness. It's the level of knowledge that my team brings to the table, making sure that our clients know that we care about them. I mean, that's kind of the baseline of how we want them to feel.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for sharing so much about your practice, your journey. You've been unbelievably candid and insightful, and just very, very powerful, your story, Carrie. So we're so thrilled. Carrie is an unbelievable ambassador of our Kestra financial name. We're thrilled to have you on the platform, and can't thank you enough for your time today.
Great, thank you.